Serious, overnight hikers, hunters and outdoors people of Reddit, what creepy things have you experienced in the forest? A number of years ago I was up in the northern end of BC in the islands out by Port Hardy. I set up camp right by the beach close. To shore did the normal catch a fish, cook it for dinner on the campfire thing. Perfect really. A few hours pass and it's getting dark. I climb into the tent and fall asleep quickly. I get woken up by extremely heavy breathing on the beach from something big in the area of my fire, but the tide was in now, so the waves would have covered it. My first thought is bear, but on the islands where I was bear were not common at all, to the point that there hasn't been one documented ever. This is blasting though my mind, but then the urban talk of Bigfoot runs through my mind. At this point I'm like, there is no such thing as Bigfoot, so what the hell is it? I gain my courage and open my tent. I shine my flashlight around, but I don't see anything, so I get out of my tent. I'm shining my light around when I hear it again. This huge breath, but followed by a small splash. I focus my light on the beach when I see a massive orca rolling around on the kelp right about where my fire was. This behemoth of marine mammal scared the living shit out of it, but it turned into being one of the most amazing events I ever witnessed. As I sat watching this massive animal rolling and playing yards from me, I noticed more of them just offshore, just bobbing their prob half asleep. Needless to say, I did not sleep after that until they left. I was spending 3 days kayaking on the Koran. I was having a great time and really enjoying the serenity and listening to the native birds and just appreciating nature. On the first day I heard what I could have sworn was a human, not screaming, screeching I guess. I didn't think much of it and kept paddling. I saw what looked like a body close to the shore and found a seal that had just been eviscerated. Honestly, this thing was spread all over the beach. No footprints of any kind, just a seal in 100 pieces. After the screeching and the seal I was a little creeped out, but just continued my trip. Nothing of event really happened that night, except that I kept hearing splashes from the water in front of me, yet when I checked there was nothing there. The next day I went out again with the same plan. Just paddle until I got tired and then set up camp and go to bed. Unfortunately for me, I got stuck on mud bog and had to spend a solid hour dragging my kayak across this thing to get to the other side of the water, where I saw a deeper channel and a bunch of sand dunes. After what feels like maybe 40 minutes of struggling with my kayak and this bog, I saw a figure atop one of the sand dunes. Logically it was probably a random tourist like me, or maybe a kangaroo. I stared at it for a second before getting back to trying to cross this bog. When I looked back it was gone. Weird. Anyway, I set up camp for my last night. I was a bit creeped out by the seal and the noises and now this figure, so I made sure I had my knife with me. I set up my tent a bit away from the water in an open area so I could see everything around me. As I was eating dinner I couldn't help but feel I was being watched, as it was a total fire ban in the area. I didn't have a fire, so I couldn't see much. I chalked it up to nerves and went for a short walk to explore the area I was in and wandered down to the beach. Now for some context, the beach nearby is loud. You can't hear much other than crashing waves, which makes what happened next especially eerie. I heard that fucking screeching again and looked back to where I came from. Again a figure was standing in right by the path where I walked to the beach. Fuck that, I thought. I pulled my knife out and approached where I thought I saw this thing. There was just a week-old fish that looked like it had been hung on the fence and forgotten. As I walked back down the path I heard what sounded like a kangaroo or wallaby just lightly hopping behind me, but when I looked back there was nothing there. Honestly, I just climbed into my tent and prayed to God there was nothing around. It's kind of anticlimactic, but nothing else really happened. I think I heard that screeching once more and then I didn't hear it again. Apparently there are a few indigenous graveyards in the area. I'm not one for superstition, but if I'm being honest, this experience really spooked me. 1. I'm sleeping in my hammock in the woods off the Appalachian Trail somewhere, and I'm woken up by something walking very quietly under me. It was tall enough to lift my feet up as it went under me, which is terrifying to wake up to in the middle of the night. Probably a deer, but scared the crap out of me. 2. Hiking in Africa with a group of about 8 friends, I felt something behind me, so I turn around and find myself eye to eye with a giant alpha male baboon. I handed over my backpack, which is what he was reaching for, and he proceeded to carry it a few meters away, sit down, and stare at me while he unzipped the zippers and inspected every item. He ate what was food and left the rest. He then proceeded to stalk/chase us all the way out of the gorge, coming back twice for more stuff. We tried scaring him off and even pepper sprayed him in the face, but he just shook it off. It was one of the most awesome and terrifying experiences of my life that I hope to never repeat. I was solo camping the Chattooga River. It was maybe midnight when I felt my hammock start to shake violently. I poked my head out and it's a goddamn raccoon trying to steal my boots. This was my first time solo camping and I nearly shit a hole through my pants. And it didn't end there. Those little gremlins tormented me all night long, constantly trying to steal my shit. Moral to the story: don't feed the animals, people. I was elk hunting in Washington state a few years ago. As I was side hilling a small canyon, I experienced the old cliche of an odd feeling and being really uncomfortable. I headed up to the ridgeline and eventually met up with another hunter coming down the ridge very quickly. He waved me down and informed me that he had been watching me through binoculars and that I had walked directly under a tree with a mountain lion in it. Apparently I walked right under it and it simply watched me. Guess he wasn't hungry. Not so creepy, but an unnerving feeling. Was riding my horse down a trail. Heard a noise, tink tink, like glass. Looked down and saw a mouse in a glass bottle. It couldn't get out. Stopped, tipped the bottle and let the little one go. Was riding my horse down a trail and heard a dog whine. Real quiet, I whistled, it started barking. Rode that way and found the dog. It was a German Shorthair hunting dog who had tried to get out of a creek and had gotten his collar hung up in a root. Goodness knows how long he was there. He was skinny. On his last legs, if you know what I mean. Had a collar with owner info engraved. Called them and they were speechless. That dog had been missing for 3 weeks. He surely was in the water that long. My friend and I were searching for the perfect camping spot for about a year. After trying out quite a few, we found one that seemed perfect. It was about a half-hour walk from any trail or road and on top of a large cliff over a river. We got camp set up and decided to scout out around the area. It was getting dark, so we started heading back, following the sound of the river to guide us, when we spotted something. A shack. We stop and look at each other and decide we better investigate because it is pretty close to where we are going to be sleeping and this is weird. We get closer and realize it is basically a teepee made from scraps of aluminum and other sheet metal and a tarp. There is a inflated air mattress inside and wine and whiskey bottles everywhere. There was also porn and a lot of extremely weird objects that someone normally would not have out camping. This place is a couple hours from any town, and like I said, at least a half hour from any road or trail. There were no vehicles parked anywhere even remotely close, because we would have seen them in our travels. We came to the conclusion that whoever had been here must have left, and they obviously did not want to be found. Then, on our way out, I noticed the campfire was still smoldering. We got the fuck out of there. Immediately packed up camp, and blindly made our way back to the road. Fuck that, I've watched enough horror movies to know that us teenage white boys would not be waking up that morning. Hiking alone in Washington. Late fall, so it's cold and few people on the trail. I'm halfway up a steep switchbacked climb and laying down to take a break when 2 guys come along descending the trail. I wave and they wave back. As they get close, one of them suddenly says, "Oh, you're alone," and then smiles at his friend. I get a little freaked out, and I guess my dog sensed it because she stood up and stared sternly at them. She's an 80-pound black lab and full of love, but can look very intimidating. The guys saw her and completely changed and quickly hurried on their way. I'm not sure if they were gonna do something creepy, but I picked a much less obvious campsite that night. The screech of an owl can be haunting. But the thing that freaked me out the most was a snake on top of the ocean surface. I'd never seen a snake around the beach before, and I had no idea they could sit on top of the water like that. It was sort of mesmerizing, but I saw 3 of them that day on the beach, and have never encountered snakes like that again. One was diving in a shallow pool hunting crabs and it just sat down on the bottom for longer than I thought would be possible. All in all, learned a lot about snakes that day. I was out camping in the White Mountains during winter time, when all of a sudden I start hearing branches cracking and snow crunching. I peer out of my tent to see a moose, maybe 10 feet away, its head down to the ground staring at me. I slowly crawled back into my tent, and it kept eating twigs. I was more worried it was going to accidentally step on me. Breathing. Just heavy breathing right outside my tent, loud enough to wake me up. Not like fat guy going up the stairs breathing. Very large, intense, clear breathing. Middle of the night. No animal sounds, no grunting, no footsteps. Just breathing from something large. I loaded my shotgun and pointed it in the direction it was coming from and waited for what seemed like a lifetime, probably 2 to 3 minutes, until it just stopped. I did not sleep the rest of the night and I didn't go out until the morning. No signs of any animals or people in my camp, no footprints, nothing disturbed. Still to this day I don't know what it was. As an experienced hunter who has chased away bears from my camp, I have never been so scared. Not exactly hiker/hunter/etc, but I was walking back to my parents' country house a bunch of years ago. It was this time of the year, so it got dark pretty soon. I was around 16 years old and coming back from meeting friends. 1 kilometer remaining of walk. On the other side of the road I saw a lantern. Couldn't see any details of the person, however. Seconds later, he/she aims at me with the light for what I felt so long. Then it gets turned off and disappears in the darkness. I don't think I have ran faster in my life. Apparently when a beehive falls to the ground, bees still stay in it. Never have I accidentally stepped on something and had more instant regret. Thanks for watching and share your stories. Don't forget to consider the idea to maybe think about potentially subscribing. Peace.